In our quest to keep our communities connected and united, INX Prime brings you exclusive live daily feeds of Maghrib and Isha Salah from Masjid Al Aqsa. INX Prime, DSTV, channel 345.
Give your family relief from the summer sniffles and allergies, plus added protection for their immune systems. Get more this summer and feel better, faster with Lintagon.
Welcome back, guys. Thanks for joining us. This is INX Prime Live. Remember, we are on your screens every single Monday to Friday between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Now, just last week, Mandla Mandela, the Emir of the Royal House of Mandela and the grandson of former President Nelson Mandela, launched a global campaign to bring pressure on the International Olympic Committee to ban Israeli athletes who served in the IDF from taking part in the Paris Games. Now, the call for Israel's exclusion is gaining momentum with just a week to go before the games kick off in Paris. Now, for more on this, I am actually joined by Martin Jansen, who is actually the Palestine Solidarity Campaign Chairperson. And thank you so much, Martin, for joining us here at INX Prime Live.
Good evening to you and good evening to your viewers.
It's a pleasure having you. I just wanted to get straight into this conversation as well. You know, we are seeing, a lot of momentum growing in terms of this campaign. I would like to know from you, how strong would you say is the global campaign calling for Israel's banning for this year's Olympics?
Unfortunately, I don't think it's strong enough. It's not strong enough to ensure that Israel is banned. For many years, as the PSC in Cape Town, we've been pushing for this. We even wrote a letter to FIFA in 2016. But the situation is that with campaigns like these, they need to be driven internationally. We are part of the South African BDS coalition, which is in turn affiliated to the Boycott National Committee, which is based in Ramallah. It's the Palestinian arm or the coordinating structure for the BDS globally. And unfortunately, I don't think that they've prioritized sport enough. And I don't think that they've coordinated an international campaign, certainly not in recent times. It's been pushed by the member organizations, which is good, but it needs that international coordination and leadership, right? In the same way that South Africa led a very, very strong BDS campaign internationally from as early as the 1950s, in the late 1950s in sport. And of course, it grew to, in 1970, it was very, very effective. And by the 1980s, South Africa was completely isolated, not only in sport, but in all spheres of life, politically, economically, and so on. So my answer is simply that we are not strong enough with our call for boycotting and expelling Israel from international sporting bodies. A lot needs still to be done.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, just touching on the Olympics as well, we know that it happens every single 4 years. And a lot of people are very excited. There was also a lot of controversy behind it being hosted in Paris. But we know it's one of the most prestigious global events out there. Now, let's say if, for example, Israel ends up not participating, or let's say actually they are actually allowed to take part, in this, what does this mean for the Palestinian struggle?
Look, I think it's not going to mean much, but I don't think it will do much harm to the Palestinian struggle. Firstly, I think, again, it will expose the hypocrisy of the political leadership of the West, especially. And that includes the international sporting bodies, which are dominated by Western imperialist countries and their representatives in sport. And as the viewers would know, that Russia, for example, not too long ago, after it invaded Ukraine, was within a week or less than a month, it was suspended from all international competitions. And even now, Russian athletes are not, supposed to or allowed to compete under the Russian flag, under the Russian national banner. So this is what happened immediately. And yet, this has been going on for nearly 8 decades. The genocide of the Palestinian people, which has now reached an extreme level in Palestine, not only in Gaza, but the West Bank as well. And yet, these international bodies are effectively doing nothing and ignoring the situation, despite many pleas from civil society in the West as well. So I think if they're allowed to compete unaffected, it will again expose the hypocrisy and only serve to intensify the solidarity with the Palestinian people and against the genocide.
Yeah, without a doubt. Looking at last week as well, we know that it marked obviously International Mandela Day. Now, we do remember that Nelson Mandela did say that South Africa's freedom is not complete without, while Palestine is not free as yet. Now, how effective is South Africa's solidarity with the people of Palestine, in your opinion?
Okay, if we're talking about South Africa's solidarity, then we just need to distinguish who and what we're talking about for South Africa. Firstly, there's the government, right, which for 30 years has been dominated by the ANC as the ruling party. And in those 30 years, the ANC has done very, very little in real concrete solidarity with the Palestinian people. I think our biggest breakthrough with the government came late last year, after it was quite obvious that the Palestinians were subjected or being subjected to genocide, a brutal genocidal campaign by Israel. The government then referred the genocide case to the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, and was successful in that. And that was a very, very important judgment and subsequent rulings of the ICJ, which is the African government, took up and supported. Now, that's the main achievement of the government. It was big for us, but definitely not enough. And in the area of boycotts, divestments, and sanctions against Israel, the government has done nothing and has shown very little inclination towards doing anything. And we've been pushing and pushing for many, many years. And we're now at the point where we're saying, look, we cannot accept this from the South African government, especially in the light of the successful ruling of the International Court of Justice. Because when that happened to South Africa in the 70s, with the ICJ also ruling against apartheid South Africa, what happened almost immediately thereafter was that the UN and other international bodies, and eventually including the US and British governments and most European governments, supported boycotts and sanctions against the apartheid regime. And we're asking now, given that experience of our own struggle, why is it that the ANC, which was the leading liberation party against apartheid, has not done anything substantial in the form of boycotts, disinvestment, or sanctions against Israel? And for us, that's the big question. We know that South Africa is one of the big exporters of coal to Israel, also diamonds. Diamonds make up a quarter of the Israeli economy. Why is it that we are not sanctioning and not allowing coal and diamonds to go to Israel? On the other hand, there's of course us as civil society. Our Palestine solidarity has been very, very strong for a very long time. It's very difficult. Most of us are not full-time. We don't have lots of resources, but it has improved over the years. And of course, now there's very, very good, strong mass support in South Africa by most South Africans. Unfortunately, we would like many more South Africans to be active participants in solidarity with our Palestinian brothers and sisters, but that is still developing and growing. But relatively speaking, we are very, very strong as civil society in solidarity with Palestine.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll definitely see more growth in terms of support and solidarity for Palestine as more of the world is becoming aware of what is actually happening in that situation. So I want to touch on something you did mention. We spoke about Russia and Belarus as well. Now we know that they've actually been banned from the games previously. But if you're looking at Israel, for example, they're actually now being allowed to participate, obviously, if this thing falls through. But also 30 of their athletes actually served in the Israeli army. So they were actually part of the IDF. How much should this actually be highlighted? Do you think that the global public should go out and emphasize this on social media platforms and all around the world?
Yes, definitely. Look, we should be screaming loudly from the rooftops all over the world. And look, in Paris, there are lots of demonstrations at the moment, very, very strong, very, very loud. In fact, one of our political leaders and a very, very strong solidarity supporter for Palestine, Chief Mandela, he's there. And in fact, he's been broadcasting from Paris. So that should be happening all over the world. In fact, we hope that when the games open, I think it's on Friday evening, we should have mass demonstrations all over the world. I really think not only because of the 30 IDF soldiers who are part of the Israeli Olympic team, but simply because of Israel's genocide for 8 decades against the Palestinians, and now the most horrific atrocities being committed against the Palestinian people. We should be doing this. And I sincerely hope that those protests and demonstrations are big and loud and will force the hand of the political leaders and, of course, the leadership of our sporting bodies, in this case, the International Olympic Council or Committee.
Yeah, Martin, I know you did mention that, you were hoping, so it is a short period of time left, but you are, relatively confident that it will be some form of progress as well. Even if it means that they're not completely banned, there will be more exposure to this issue in particular. But we are all hoping for things to be done correctly. I just want to touch on the fact that as much as all of the stuff is happening in Palestine, Palestine is actually going to be represented at the Olympics. And I think that's an incredible thing on its own. Are you impressed by the resilience of the Palestinian people? I mean, if you're looking at Gaza, you're looking at the West Bank, the fact that they're still participating, isn't that an incredible thing?
Goodness, look, resilience is hardly the word. I mean, really, this is just super resilience. Most sports teams, if you just look at, if I can just think of one example, if you take our cricket team, not too long ago, they were supposed to go on tour, I think it was Pakistan, and there were rumors of terrorism and threats in Pakistan, and they declined to travel to Pakistan, and they didn't do that tour, cricketing tour. Now, if you just consider that, of stories and rumors, and despite all the security that the Pakistani authorities were going to organize for the South African squad, if you just think that the Palestinians have been subjected to decades of terrorism by the Israeli regime, as we speak, this is happening. People are being killed and terrorized every day all over the West Bank and, of course, Gaza. And yet they're still able to send a team to the Olympics. That's just amazing. Their resilience, their determination, despite all the harm that's done to them, they're a shining example in the fight for justice, the struggle against colonialism, and, of course, for their own safety and security and future. They're a really, really good example for the entire world, for the whole of humanity.
Yeah, we're definitely very proud of them in particular. Martin, thank you so much for joining us tonight here on INX Prime Live.
Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome, guys. That is Martin Jansen, who is actually the chairperson of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, just sharing with us, the current situation that's taking place, in particular when they are looking at banning Israel, not only at the Olympics, but also perhaps even maybe through FIFA and UEFA through the next few months and years. But on that note, guys, we are going to take a quick ad break. We'll come right back.